Today I want to discuss my opinion on Starfield, and as of me writing the script, I have about 21-ish hours in the game. Is the game good? Is the game bad? Personally, I believe it's a gray area, but we'll get into that. Without further ado, let's begin. Now let's start off with exploration, and while I believe it's actually very good and it did in some ways live up to what they promised, in other ways it feels a bit lacking. Now I wouldn't go as far as to say they lied to us with their previews and video clips, but the exploration does feel a little lacking. And a lot of this has to do with procedural generation and loading screens making it feel disconnected. Now it isn't completely bad because once again you can use procedural generation to get a very good output, but in this game it feels like the planets and terrain don't have any life put into them. It feels like they kind of were an afterthought to whatever the quest is, so it feels like the quest comes first and then whatever you find along the way is kind of an afterthought, not necessarily meaning that it doesn't matter to the devs. They did put a lot of time into it. It's something to think about when you consider that procedural generation was a huge factor in creating these worlds. Some ordinary gamers said it's like the size of Skyrim, but if you took each one of those cities and just shot them across an entire galaxy, one per planet. Too many loading screens break the immersion and sense of a connected galaxy. Take Skyrim for example. Even in Skyrim, to fast travel to a city you haven't been there before, either one, you had to run there and get there on your own feet, or you had to find a carriage. And even the carriage you had to find, you couldn't just immediately fast travel to a carriage and then go to whatever city you wanted, but once you found the carriage, then you could fast travel to it. Now Starfield is similar, but I'll explain why it's vastly different. If you want to go to a planet, let's say on the edge of the galaxy, yes, you're right, you cannot immediately fast travel to it, that's correct. However, in order to quote unquote get to there normally, you still have to bring up a menu screen, fast travel to a planet or a system, then keep fast traveling until you get there. You're not actually flying because there has to be a loading screen for presumably performance and other reasons, but it feels like it's disconnected, and that's probably, if not one of the biggest complaints I have, but in comparison to the rest of this video, this is pretty minuscule. Now, customization. Arguably the best system Bethesda has ever made, and that's a lot coming from something like Oblivion, Skyrim, and even Fallout. Now if you remember to Fallout, the character creator was a bit weird in my opinion. I didn't really like it. You had to like drag your face. It was weird. I never really understood it. But in this one, everything has sliders. You can go in depth with what you want to change. Just like Elden Ring, I really liked Elden Ring's character creator, even though it didn't have a lot to do with the game, because a lot of times you are wearing armor. But you know something that this game Starfield has that no other games have? Pronouns! Now let's be honest with ourselves. In the beginning of the game, amongst hundreds of customization options, there's this little thing that says he, him, or she, her, or whatever base character you chose it'll default to. It is brought up once, it isn't shoved in your face, and it's never even talked about again. Okay, it would be a different story if they were to shove in your face and say, hey, choose a pronoun, you cannot continue unless you do. Then that's an issue because they're shoving something onto you that you don't necessarily want. But it's a little button that you can choose to change if you want to, and then you just move on with your life. It doesn't bother you in any way, and you can just play the game normally and it never comes up again. There's a lot of items and junk that you can pick up in the world just like any other Bethesda game, and I was surprised about how much they put into this game. Everything has such a detailed character model. The items have names, descriptions, immobilizer, it'll say it. It has scrunchy packages, hard items, tough items, things like that. Gear is really cool like Skyrim, where you can get a different version of each kind of thing, but when you get this different version it can have buffs, and usually in Skyrim there's like a few that you could get, but there's a lot of buffs that you can get when you get a legendary or epic item or even blue item. Quests, where the majority of the content resides. They have really fun quests that make you run all around the galaxy, explore new places, land on new planets. You can search outposts, you can find activities, you can find quests from even just talking to random people around the world. Now some people say the main quest story is a bit lackluster, and without going into detail I disagree, but honestly the nerd inside me really loves it, and towards the end New Game Plus is a thing, and I love how they tied it into the overall narrative of the story. Now there are bigger gameplay implications of how they tied into New Game Plus, which I haven't really experienced yet, but when you get to it, you'll see what I mean. And let's be honest with ourselves, no one ever plays a Bethesda game just for the main quest. And in Starfield, the side quests prove that. They're really fun and you can go in deep depth with characters. My favorite quest was the side quest that had to do with Sarah when I was trying to romance her. When you get to a certain part, you can marry her, but you also have to go back to a planet that she used to be stranded on, and that quest was the most memorable one from the entire game, and it wasn't even the main quest. It was really enjoyable. Everyone should be able to experience quests differently, and the main quest isn't the only piece of content that you'll get from Starfield. But overall, the quests are really well thought out. You can find so much gear and items along the way. They have pretty cool side stories, and they tie into the main story pretty well and give it some more depth. Immersion. I feel really immersed in the game and the universe. Companions are great. I got married to Sarah in my playthrough. And for a lot of BGS games, I never really play into a lot of the romance because I feel like it's kind of pointless. So I made a goal for myself to, at least try it, see what kind of quests it gives me. And like I said earlier, I did Sarah's side quest when I was trying to do the romance options, and it was actually really good. Like I said, the part where you go to Cassiopeia or whatever the planet's called for her mission, her side quest, when you go to that side quest and you complete it, it's a really memorable mission. If you really try to romance and have that kind of connection with the character, it just feels more alive and you feel very immersed in the game. Only thing that breaks immersion is the amount of loading screens, as I said this before. Something about watching your ship take off so many times, opening a screen, clicking land, watching your ship land, pressing a button, loading screen, then you're finally out in the world. It just feels very disconnected and not flowing. It doesn't feel like it flows well. And that's not to say it's bad necessarily, because you get used to it. I certainly did. But I just wish it flowed a little better. Thankfully, the game does not scale with the player, and as far as my knowledge goes, maybe small encounters, I don't really know, but I haven't really noticed it, and that's a good thing. That means that the solar systems that are high level, you can go and still be challenged at a lower level, meaning wherever you run, you can still find challenge, but you can also be the challenge. You can be better than the people there, but that doesn't take away from you wanting to earn something, wanting to earn that level 60 solar system, wanting to go there and wanting to beat the enemies there. Diablo scaling is horrible because there's no incentive to get better loot. Think about it, right? The Actman said this best. If wherever you go, they scale with you, every item you get doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, they're gonna take the same amount of health away. They're gonna get killed in the same type of way. You can change that a little bit with some of the items, and you can make it more customizable, but at the end of the day, if all the enemies were to scale with you, it would just make it boring and repetitive. There's no challenge. There's nothing for the player to reach. There's nothing for the player to see at the beginning of the game and want to go there and beat it. But in Starfield, there's solar systems that are like level 60 recommended, level 70, level 85. There's all these different kind of solar systems that allow you to get better loot, go there, and thus get a reward from it. Gives you something to strive for. Space exploration. A bit lackluster in my opinion with regards to your ship, of course. I'm not talking about landing on a planet, I'm saying just in your ship. And in my opinion, it's due to you not being able to go from space to the planet's surface, like in No Man's Sky for example. However, I do understand why. There's a lot of performance limitations and they would have to really take their time to do it properly without breaking your computer, but at the end of the day, it's very immersive if you were able to do that, and that's why I really like No Man's Sky. sky. There's not too much content in space. You have the occasional satellite or asteroid and occasional NPC that you can kill or fight or talk to. There's not really any flying exploration. There's not really any flying gear, goal, or anything to reach. The ship creator is actually one of my favorite aspects of the game, but I feel like why would I make a ship if all I do with it is the same thing? It's really fun to kind of like blast your way through and decide how to fight different ships in space. Kind of similar, and it blends together. How much care did Bethesda put into this game? Well, unlike Fallout 76 and Redfall, you can clearly see the devs loved what they were doing. They loved to make the things that they made. It's not just a cash grab. It takes me back to playing old games like Skyrim and Fallout 4. Back then, you could feel the love that the devs put into the world with every item and encounter and dungeon and loot. It all felt handcrafted, and you can feel the love. Not every corner of the game has it, of course. It's not perfect, but where it does have it is where it shines, and I really enjoy the handcrafted area. Again, it's Bethesda. This is what they specialize in. I lose track of time and play for 6 to 7 hour sessions, and when I get the chance, I just keep doing it. It's fun. It's actually corrupting my work ethic. Before playing the game, there were moments of me being really hyped and confident, and then there were times of me being worried. But everyone should play it for themselves, because when I got the game in my hand, I really do enjoy it. And this video may sound like I harp on the game a lot, but that's just because I really enjoy it. I do love this game. That's why I just want it to be better. Like I said, everyone should play it for themselves and make their own opinion. Why listen to some guy ramble on the internet? Hello, by the way. Anyways, final verdict. On my personal scale, I give it a 4.4 out of 5 rating. Amazing game, but some issues are still there. However, the game makes up for it in areas with a lot of different things, like ship customization and storylines, for example. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I tried a different style of script. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to it. If this video is easier to make, maybe I'll make videos like this again in the future. But anyways, let me know if you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe. Road to 1,000. Comment as well, I read them all. Anyways, hope you guys had a nice day. Peace.